Tell me that you want me. Tell me that you need me. I'm finally on my way to the next stop now. Tell me that you want me. Tell me that you need me. I'm headed to the top now.
Right. Welcome everybody, and glad you could join us. This event on encouraging independence, aimed at parents and young people with DMD, and we're going to be hearing some really interesting stories and experiences from people about their different journeys to independence. Uh, and we were sharing the agenda just before we started. I'm just going to pop that on just again. So yeah, there you can see the agenda. I got quite a busy time. I'm just going to do a short introduction. So I just wanted to say really that Pathfinders was set up following the Action Duchenne Taking Charge project, and in 2014, and from when we began, we've always been really passionate about encouraging young people with DMD to aim to be independent. And yeah, I think this event just is really, it's just the true mission of what we're trying to achieve. So I'm really glad that we've been able to bring so many people together for this. So just to give you a little bit of introduction to Pathfinders. So we are a user-led organization run by and for people with muscle weakening conditions. We started off as DMD Pathfinders. We were exclusively about Duchenne, but now we are supporting people with other conditions as well. And we provide information, advice, and advocacy. So yeah, sharing our own experiences to help other people, and also supporting people going through the different battles they sometimes have to go through to become independent. So as I said, we came from the Taking Charge project, and we really realized that there was a lack of information about living as an adult with DMD, and we found that it was just so important for adults, older adults, to be able to share their experiences and support the kind of next generation, really. And I just wanted to just give a bit of a shout out to PTC Pharmaceuticals, who have been funding the project that this event has come from, in terms of skills building for young people with Duchenne, and support for parents as well. So thank you to them. Also, thanks to Kath for putting on this event, and yeah, I think she's done a great job of putting everyone together. So yeah, thank you. I just wanted to finish up just a little bit by saying about my own experience. So I left home to move to university accommodation when I was 18, and kind of switching between being at university for term time and coming back home with my parents doing the care when I was on holidays. And I stayed on at university, eventually permanently moving up there to do my PhD. And then I've completed my PhD, and then I returned home, and I kind of felt like I didn't really have many options. I wanted a job, but my parents were worried about whether I'd manage or not, and I thought that I might have to just volunteer instead. And so I wasn't really sure what I could do. Then I did my documentary film, A Life Worth Living, which some of you might have seen. That I met Mark Chapman, who's going to be presenting later, and just seeing what he had achieved really encouraged and inspired me to demand more from my own life. I think that was really the first step in that kind of journey to really truly becoming independent. And yeah, so it's been a long journey. I'm now married. I live in my own shared ownership flat. I've got a decent job, and I've got 2 pets, and I think I've had to fight for it at times. And I definitely had a lot of doubts and questions about whether I could do it. But with the support of everyone, I managed to achieve it. So yeah, I'm really passionate about supporting people to become more independent, and anything I can do to help. Yeah, please let me know. Anyway, uh, I'm going to let Kath introduce herself and then get us started with the rest of the event.
I'm going to be really quick. I'm Kath, and I work as an engagement officer for Pathfinders. That's it from me, really. I'm going to be interviewing quite a few of you throughout the event, so you'll just hear short bursts from me. So I'd like to just move over to Janet Hoskin next.
Thanks, Kath. I'm really delighted to be here this evening. It's a fantastic event. I think John's going to show some slides while I talk.
There you go.
Okay, so thanks, John. So as Kath said, I'm Janet. If you don't know me, I work at the University of East London in special education. But from 2011 to 2016, I co-managed the Action Duchenne's Taking Charge project, and I co-managed it with Celine, who's here, who's going to be part of the panel later on. Do you want to just do the next slide, John? Yeah, so tonight I'm just going to very briefly tell you about Taking Charge, and then I'm going to show you a film that we made towards the end of the project, because I think really you're going to hear through that film from young people who are part of it, rather than just hearing me. So Taking Charge, if you don't know, it was a lottery funded 5-year project where we worked with 80 young people between the ages of 14 and 19 years. And it was an accredited programme that worked with these young people to do lots of different activities and challenges, basically. It was also included a programme called Letting Go for Parents, where we ran parent sessions for parents to support them to think about how they could best help their young people become independent. And we also realised that siblings of young people with Duchenne also have a lot of their own needs. And so we ran a parallel programme for siblings as well. And finally, a very important group that we had who helped us totally go in the right direction was the older group of adults that included Mark and John. They basically were our steering group who helped us to organise and plan what we were doing. And they have now amazingly gone on to become Pathfinders, DMD Pathfinders and Pathfinders Neuromuscular Alliance. So amazing, really fantastic. Next slide. Okay, so the focus of the Taking Charge project then was really about encouraging people to be independent, thinking about what skills they had and what skills they wanted to develop. Understanding what DMD is really important, developing IT skills, getting to know other people, became very important, getting to think about relationships, not just friendship relationships, but sexual relationships. We work with different organisations like the Family Planning Association, we work with housing associations, we work with people who gave advice about careers and employment. So lots of different issues that should be coming up in people's education, health and care plans about what they see their futures to be. So it was very well timed because it came at the same time as changes in special needs legislation as well. Okay, so overall then, the whole project was about thinking about adulthood. And here we are, here are some of the things that we did. So we thought about our health and how to keep fit, and did karate. Some people might say you wouldn't do karate if you've got Duchenne, but that was proved wrong. We went to Parliament and we invited our MPs. We did animation workshops where we made films. We went to the Olympic Park and we did wheelchair football. So lots and lots of different things that we did. So basically, as part of this accredited programme, but also just to think about what it was that we wanted to do with our futures. Okay, so what we're gonna, just before I show the film then, towards the end of the project, and we did an evaluation with parents, and these are the 4 things that really came out as key to be important with the project. The first one was the importance of adults with DMD as role models. And I think that's kind of obvious from this evening, but to actually see people with DMD doing things, having a life, having a job, living independently, doing things to do with being independent was very, very important. Secondly, people said it was so important to become part of a community that, it's patients, if you like, and people living with DMD who are the experts, not always the doctors. You know, we know as families what works and what doesn't. A third thing that came out was this idea of what resilience is. It isn't necessarily about always being able to bounce back, but it's about, you know, being able to have the right support in place. And the way that you do that, we found, was through doing lots of planning and helping each other. And finally, people talked about, you know, parents talked about wanting a normal life with their kids and their family. And one mother said, I want to be his mother now, not his carer and not his cook. Okay, so what I'll do now then is I'll ask John to show the film, which, as I said, we made towards the end of the project, which will tell you a little bit more about the sorts of things that, and you'll be able to see the sorts of things that we were doing. So thank you for your time.
It's a very good time to have the leadership project for young people with Duchenne because life expectancy is so much better now than it was, say, 20 years ago, with regimes such as night ventilation, steroids, spinal surgery and cardiac management. Young people are living longer lives, and really with this improved care, we really want to make sure that, as well as living longer, that they've got improved access to do the things that they want to do, so that they have bigger lives which involve exciting and interesting things that they really want to do.
I want to be a games designer when I'm older, and I would like to go to university.
I'm at college at the moment, but my next aspiration is to go to university to study journalism.
Well, camera crew. Yeah, part of a camera crew. Yeah, that can be in my
Yeah, right.
Oh, you see, nice.
Yeah, I am planning to go to university, and I want to study neuroscience.
Well, I've done quite a few different things. I've worked with an online podcast, doing interviews and things, and then I've written for various magazines, newspapers, local newspapers, college magazines. I sent it to online resources, and I do a bit of on blogging online as well.
Taking the girl, so you'd be having a girlfriend to take to the cinema.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's what you do on a date, you go to the cinema and take your girlfriend. Nice romantic film. Bit of a chick flick. Yeah, or a horror film, so cuddle up to you.
It was great to hear Dr. John Hastie, who has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, talk about his journey and how he has managed to get an education. He's got a PhD, he lives independently in a flat, and he works part-time in Brighton.
We think it's really important that adults are not forgotten, and that we do recognise that with recent developments in treatment like ventilation over the last few years, people are living a lot longer.
Because it isn't until you see someone living in this situation independently, albeit with a lot of support, that you can think, well, maybe that could be possible for my son, my brother, my uncle. And it's very, very inspiring.
My name is Ravi Mehta and I'm 25 years old. I graduated last year and I'm currently volunteering for a charity. I'd like to work in the charity sector, or maybe to do with marketing. At the moment I live in Brixton, which I live with my parents at the moment, but hopefully can get into my own place soon.
It's a natural progression that everybody should have a chance to grow up and leave home. It's a separation that should happen. So I want Benjamin to have the same opportunities as anybody else his age, and I want him to be able to go away and explore life and be independent.
Well, obviously I like to live independently, or maybe with flatmates, or hopefully if I'm in a relationship, then that will be in the perfect world.
I think to start with, it would be quite nice to live with somebody, and then as time goes on, to get even older, maybe have my own place.
Well, for me, the process starts with what do people need? What is the support that they need to help them flourish in the new accommodation? And understanding what's going to help people live independently and, as I say, flourish. If you understand those things, then you start to plan the housing around it. Sometimes it's easy, most of the time it can be quite hard, but there are ways to do it, and I think perseverance and money help move things along.
And these workshops are incredibly important because what they do is they show what is possible. So people who maybe didn't expect that they ever could live independently get to meet people with equally complex conditions who are living independently. And so it begins to raise the question, well, what would I need to be doing today to maybe help me achieve that in the future? Likewise with the employment workshops, we have examples of people who are doing really interesting things. And at the workshop, there's then an opportunity for the young men that we're working with, the young people that we're working with, to say, okay, well, I'd like some of that. What would I need to be doing today that's preparing me for that?
To the researchers, hurry up with the treatment. Having Duchenne means I get more tired as I get older. This doesn't mean I can't enjoy my life, but you could make it a lot easier. To David Cameron, stop blaming people. Stop blaming disabled people for your problems. We are worth more than £2 per hour.
Thank you. Next up, we've got Alan Pockley, and we've got a video again, so bear with us, please.
I'm Alan Pockley, 36 years old, and I live in the northeast of England. I currently live independently, and I do this via a care company who support me. And they basically help me run the care obviously the care package. Just when we interview people, I always have the choice to whether they work for me or not. So I get to still am able to decide who I have. So like, you know, who supports me. When I used to go to a hospice in Yorkshire called Mountain House, and you were about some, I think one guy there who called Gordon, he went there, and he used to have independently quite a while. I remember talking to people there, and they mentioned that he'd been doing it for quite a few years. So I decided that, you know, find out who the company was. So it all went on from there, really. It was like I helped mostly for my parents, myself, finding out, you know, information from others. They would maybe do the same. There wasn't really many people around the course, but that sort of helped. And then self-care side, counselling did help a little bit, but it was mostly just me and my family and the care company and other people that really knew anything about it, to be honest. Yeah, I would say they should definitely do it. I feel like it's a great thing to do, and I feel like I've had a much better quality of life. That it's great to be able to do what you want to do. When you want, without having to worry about your family or your parents, because you know, then when you live on your own, your parents can just be your parents. So they don't have to be your care, and it feels like you have a much better relationship. I would say, you know, as the one this year, John wants to, you know, live independently. trying to support them as much as you can. I know, the parents, it's difficult, but out of life it gives us, and to read it what happens, I don't really think there's a better thing to encourage somebody to do. That, just because I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean I shouldn't try to do things. Because they always encourage me to be very independent. I think it just gave me the confidence to want to do it. I think that's mainly what it was, really, yeah. I also try to encourage them to have more input in their appointments with doctors and things, and encourage them maybe to use the telephone. Because I was found that I was scared to use the phone. Just anything to really encourage you to have your own say in your own voice. To make sure you say what you need and want.
Thank you, Alan. I should mention that Alan is here. And if you have any questions, please use the question and answer feature or the chat. And I know John's doing a lot of technical stuff for us, so thanks, John. But he will endeavour to get the answers to you as well. So thanks very much, Alan. So next, we're moving over to Uni Life with Sam, Cornelius Light and Benjamin James. So if you could unmute, please, guys. Brilliant, there you are, I found you. So Sam Cornelius Light is in his final year at the University of West of England, Bristol, studying geography. And Benjamin James, who you actually probably saw earlier, I don't know if you spotted him in Janet's video, much younger version, has a neuroscience degree from the University of Nottingham and a master's in science communication from Sheffield University, so University of Sheffield. So this is a question to both of you. Probably Ben first. Can you tell me something that people might not know about you?
What might you not know? I've been in a couple of bands when I was a teenager. You might not know that. Playing the drums.
Oh, fab. Sam?
Something that you may not know about me is that I've got quite a big love of sound systems. I don't know if people know what those are, but you'll probably most likely see me at music events where sound systems are involved, and I'm looking forward to going to these again when they start up again in earnest.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about university for the people that are watching. John and I went to university, but I think we're getting a bit older now, so you're currently there, so it's useful information. When did you know that you wanted to go to university? So if you could answer that first, Ben.
Yeah, sure. So I suppose it was during my A-levels. It was, one of the options and something I definitely considered and knew that I perhaps wanted to do. I mean, originally I actually wanted to be a sort of sound engineer, but I was also into science and decided to go down that route. And, I was actively encouraged to apply. And that, I suppose that's what made me decide on going to university. I suppose if I went down the sound engineering route, I may have gone to more of a college or found somewhere else. But yeah, university was always sort of a potential option for me.
Thank you. And Sam?
Again, similar to Ben, actually. It was sort of at A-levels that I really wanted to go to university, as I heard a lot of people how much of an amazing experience it was, and you get to make loads of new friends, and that's a really good benefit, and that's one of the main benefits of it. And I think another decision of what I want to do at university, I was deciding whether to do, I've always on the path to do geography, and it was always something I wanted to do from school, and I'm really glad that I undertook a degree in it.
Thank you. Actually, Sam, you've started to answer the next question. So I'll start with you first with this one. So apart from studying, at university, so the studying aspect.
Yeah.
What else do you think you've got out of going to university?
I think I've gained a lot of social skills. Like, it's really helped my confidence in speaking to people, and I've met loads of amazing people that I wouldn't have met if I hadn't gone to university. So I think one of the main things, apart from the academic, is the confidence building it's done for me, really.
Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, and for me, it's similar to Sam. It's the sort of confidence and having to deal with situations away from home by yourself, and yeah, meeting all sorts of kinds of different people, and yeah, I suppose just exploring your independence and sort of deciding how you manage that with Duchenne as well. I suppose that's what it was for me. Yeah, building confidence.
Thank you. So this is a bit of a fun question, this one. What sort of groups have you joined at university? Sam, do you want to start?
So in my first, second year, one of my societies I joined was a poker society. So playing poker so I've learned that. Board games, a DJ society, and also I was on my university geography society course. So I was a participation and equality officer on that, and that was a really good experience. So definitely the societies is definitely an added bonus to university life.
Have you missed them this year?
A lot of them, yeah, because a lot of them were in person and stuff, but I've been quite busy in my final year with dissertation and stuff like that. So I probably wouldn't have had that much time, but I would definitely recommend to any first year or second year to take part in those.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Yeah, and I would say for me, it was quite a lot of societies you could join. I think DJ Society was one, Band Society was another, because they're all quite cheap to join. I was also part of the Christian Union. I joined a board game society, although they were a bit competitive for me. But yeah, there were all sorts that you try. It's just trying different things out, I suppose, and whatever is your interests and hobbies are. It's a great time to explore that. And I'd definitely say in first year, that's something you should do more, where perhaps it's not the same pressure as other years, is join different clubs.
Thank you. What's one thing that you wish that you had known before you went to uni? Or is there one? Sam?
So I think one thing I would know is that just to keep all your options open and try to make the most of every opportunity that comes across your way. If it's a society that you really want to do, I would definitely take that opportunity, as it will definitely bring loads of advantages to your university experience. So just, yeah, keep all your options open and grasp every opportunity possible.
Thank you. Benjamin?
Yeah, and I'd say a similar thing to Sam. I would say, like, make the most of first year, particularly if it doesn't count towards your degree. There's not the same pressure. To definitely explore more of those social opportunities, join different clubs, try different things whilst you sort of can, but perhaps don't overdo it as well. And I suppose it's accepting that there will be some challenges, particularly if you use a wheelchair, in terms of accessibility and finding things. But it's doing your research, I suppose, and accepting things might be challenging sometimes, but that making the most of the time you have to explore the different social aspects, I suppose.
Thank you. I think you've touched on this as well, so I'm going to start this question with you as well, Benjamin. How did you manage to find out all of the things that you needed to know going to uni?
I suppose it helps that I'm quite organised. I did my research before. I had some sort of support from school, and I got in contact with the different disability support officers at the universities I would be visiting, and made sure that I looked around and had arranged meetings with them for every visit, because that's really important that you get that right and you're happy with the support they offer, or they might help you with. Because universities I found, not every single one, but most of them were quite proactive and helpful in supporting you with that side of things.
Thank you. Sam, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say very similar stuff to Ben, but one thing I would also say is that to get in contact with potential universities as early as possible. Once you've made your decision to go to university, try and start contacting those universities as soon as you can. Because for my situation, it was a bit dramatic because I was going to one university, but I didn't get the grades, so I had to quickly resort to finding another university. But luckily, they were really, really helpful and helped me find suitable accommodation. So I would definitely say if you can, plan in advance and get the ball rolling as quickly as possible.
Thank you. So what's been the biggest challenge and how did you sort it out, Benjamin?
Yeah, so I suppose the biggest challenge for me was when I did my master's, which is about a couple of years ago now. It was arranging 24-hour support at university, because it was a real fight with social services to understand that I needed that. I wouldn't have been able to manage, whereas I had it in my undergraduate degree, because things were different then. But yeah, it was had to be really persistent and determined that they would support me, because they had previously done this using an agency that I wanted to use. So I wanted to use Ask Jules, and I got them in the end, but I had to be very persistent and determined that that would be in place. And it was quite close to the wire. I only really managed to sort it out basically 2 weeks before, but it did work out. And obviously, I benefited from that, and it enabled me to, further my studies.
Thank you. And Sam?
I think one of the main challenges I've had is having to, as well as undertake university, is also managing PAs and carers. As generally, I've had quite a smooth ride with all my PAs and carers. There've been a few hiccups and stuff, but I think that can be a challenge when you're not used to it. But I would say it's definitely a good life challenge that will put you in good stead for the future. So I think managing PAs and undertaking your degree is definitely one of the main challenges.
Thank you. Sam, I'm going to ask you something quickly I haven't asked beforehand, sorry. But I think people would like to hear about this. Can you tell us just briefly about your field trip that you took?
Yep. So I'm in my second year where I went on a field trip with all my course mates to Mallorca. And at first it was decided that it wouldn't be suitable for me. I wouldn't be able to manage it. But me and my two PAs were really adamant that I would be able to undertake it. And there was a challenge to get organising all the hoists and profiling bed and making sure it was all accessible as much as possible. But I ended up going, and it was a really great opportunity, and it's definitely a very vivid positive memory of my university life. So it definitely was a challenge to get it all booked in order, but I'm so glad I persevered with it.
Thank you. And the last question for both of you. What would you say to other young people about going to university? Benjamin, if we go with you first.
Yeah, I'd just say go for it and start planning as soon as you can, because if you're happy with everything and you've got everything in place, or as much as you can do, then you're going to feel happier starting off. And ultimately, if you're confident in what you can do, you'll hit the ground running. And I suppose it's accepting that things are going to be difficult and challenging, because ultimately the world isn't really geared up for powered wheelchairs, as you sort of discovered. But I think with determination, organisation, and just I suppose just going for it, there's nothing to stop you from doing it. And I would argue that universities, in my experience, have been quite accommodating. You might have to fight for things, and like Sam had to with his trip, and say, I'm going to do this. But I'd just say, just go for it.
Thank you. And finally, Sam.
I would say very similar to Ben, very similar on the same lines, just to give it a shot. If you really want to go for it, do it, and keep all your options open and grasp every opportunity. And one thing I would say about for parents is people like us with neuromuscular conditions have a high amount of resilience, more than most people realise. So we are more or less able to do anything we want if we put our mind to it.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Ben. We're going to end it there, and we're going to move on to a video of Ryan and Karen O'Leary.
I'm Ryan O'Leary, and I have a degree in 3D animation, and I've been looking for a job ever since I graduated. And I currently live in Alton, Hampshire.
I'm Karen O'Leary. I live in Hoddesdon in Hertfordshire. I'm an early years practitioner and I volunteer for 4 charities.
I decided to go to Toulouse around the age of 16, and I wanted to go there because I felt that the mainstream college probably wasn't the right place for me to understand and gain my independence more, because I needed some more specialised help in that. Mainly it was through wheelchair football and my friend Aaron Small, who was currently already living there, and he told me about Toulouse. He told me about an open day that was coming up, and he said that he made sure he's there to show me around.
When Ryan told me that he wanted to go to Toulouse College, I was quite excited for him because I felt that he was quite isolated at home and a lot of his friends were going off to colleges and different places and he wouldn't be able to do that. So I thought I'd make every effort as his parent to try and help him and assist him to get there and look at all the funding. And we went to the open day visit and we met Aaron and his mum and they told us all about it.
My parents, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my parents. And a lot of it was, I think the social worker helped quite a bit. My actual old school, they were very helpful in trying to get me into the college to prove, they helped me prove that mainstream college was not the right place for me. So I reckon my old school, they were very, very important to get me there. Through Aaron and also my other friend, Freddie, who's sadly not with us anymore, but Freddie showed me, he told me about all the stuff that I needed to get there. So that was, wheelchair football was a big driving force for helping me get there.
Because I've also volunteered for parents in Hertfordshire connection with schools, I use their charity side of things, social workers, school, and also the connections through wheelchair football, because I think it becomes a bit of a football family, so we network to talk to people.
I would say if you're in a situation like Toulouse, I would try and, even if you're not liking it after the first few weeks, I would stick it out for as long as you possibly can till you definitely know that it's either the right place or the wrong place for you. You've got to give it time because these things take time.
Once Ryan got to Toulouse, Barry and I decided that the best thing we could do for Ryan is to support him from a distance, making sure we had phone calls and keeping in touch with his tutors. But we decided that it wasn't a good idea for him to take all his PlayStation and his TV and everything. He needed to get into the community side of it and get to know the people as well as the lessons. So the actual interactions out of lessons was really important. And once he built up those friendships, then what he didn't like about Toulouse sort of drifted off in the distance, because he actually got into the community of Toulouse and was going out and doing things and had such a good social side of it in the evenings that the learning and the social side were fantastic. So he gave it a good 3 months, and when he came home for the Christmas holidays, we said, are you still wanting to stay there? And from the wobbles at the beginning, it was, yes, there's no way I'm coming home now. I think to let him make his own choices and to make mistakes as well. You've got to be independent. You've got to go off and give everything a go. And when it goes wrong, just be there in the background and give advice. But you've got to let them go. You can't wrap him up in cotton wool when he has an argument with someone or a lesson goes wrong or he's got told off because he's not done his college work, be there, listen to what he's got to say, but then say, you know, what do you think you need to do to make it better? It's no good me always doing it for him.
Basically forcing me to persevere with staying at college, even when I had difficult times. And in the end, I actually stopped calling mum and dad, and they actually got annoyed with me not calling them back.
I think you've got to consider that if that your young person was an able-bodied person, would you interfere so much in their life and their independence? I found that if Liam wanted to go to college, that was fine, get on the bus by yourself and do everything. Whereas with Ryan, I was worrying all the time for if he had to go from lesson to lesson, how's he going to get there? If he had to do his shopping or go out anywhere, I was panicking that he's going to be going out on his own. Whereas with Liam, I didn't panic at all. And Ryan can talk and he can express himself really well. So if he needed help, he can ask for it, the same as Liam can. And I just had to get my head around that I don't need to do everything for him anymore. Because once the average young person is 16, you let them go out and fly the nest, as I say, and be independent and make friendships and make relationships away from the home. And I had to get used to that idea that actually Ryan wasn't my little child, because I think sometimes we still see our disabled young people as children and not as adults because we want to protect them.
Don't mollycoddle them, let them make their own mistakes, let them be normal people. I don't, as my mum used to say, that don't let the family themselves become disabled. Just let it have someone who is disabled within that family, but still lives as normal life as possible.
Once Ryan was at college, I kept in contact with him, but obviously they have the team that look after Ryan, so looking after his well-being and at school, making sure that you check in with them occasionally, keep in touch. When Ryan didn't ring, like he said before, sometimes it would be like 6 weeks, and then I'd get a little bit worried about, is he okay? So having that good connection between all the different agencies within the college, because Ryan did Trelaws and Alton College, so it was really important that I talked to everybody or just drop people an email and building a good relationship. I wouldn't say a friendship, but a good relationship with everybody that Ryan comes in contact with. So then if there is a problem and you're honest with each other, you can discuss everything really quickly and deal with it. They'd discuss it with him and not just me. So I'd step away then because he needed to build those relationships.
Just everyday things like not having to worry about her feeding me and things like that, and like she can come down and just be my mum, not actually having to do my care. We can just be like normal, so we could watch football together.
It is nice now Ryan is independent to be his mum, because when you're living together and you're caring and you're trying to be a mum, sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming and you suddenly feel that you've lost your identity as a mum and you're just a carer doing all the everyday stuff that has to be done. And sometimes that can get a bit tiring and sometimes you get a bit irritable with people. And now Ryan's got that independence. We don't argue anymore, and we actually enjoy each other's company, which a lot of the time it was difficult. It was strange, especially when I didn't have night carers. So I was doing day and night. That was really, really difficult. And then once Ryan got his independence, we actually become a mother and son, not a carer anymore.
Thank you, Karen and Ryan. So next up, we've got Matthew O'Sullivan. Are you still here, Matthew?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Brilliant. Super. So I'll just introduce Matthew. So Matthew's married and lives independently with his wife. So just a silly question to start with, Matthew. What's the scariest thing you have ever done?
Scariest thing? Well, I think the scariest thing was my first sort of independent holiday day when I went to Japan with my carers, and that was sort of the first holiday experience where I was actually on my own. I had to do everything there, and that actually encouraged me to move and live independently. So that was quite, that sort of was a wake-up call to what life is about, and you know how to do stuff, 100% independently with the help of carers.
Scary but fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Can you tell us how you live now?
So we live in a private rented ground floor maisonette flat with and we have a garden, 2 bedrooms, and we have 24/7 care through agencies and a couple of PAs. So we live in a nice small village that's very, very accessible and very accommodating to our kind of needs. When we first moved to the village, we sort of went round to the local shops and sort of explained the situation. So that a lot of them have got more accessible, with ramps and clear access to some of the shelving. So it's been lovely to live here. Yeah.
Thank you. When you were young, did you know of any other young men with Duchenne who were married or who lived independently?
No, it was only until I started going to an adult hospice in Oxford when I was 14. So I was introduced to a lot more people that had the same condition as me. I found, people married, people that have been to university, people that had children. It was a sort of a very good way of sort of seeing how other people lived, independently, how independent you can be with a bit of perseverance.
What did your parents need to know to be confident about you moving out? And what did you do to help them feel more confident?
One of their main concerns was what would happen if I didn't have any carers, or if I had to continually ask my wife to kind of help me out with certain care stuff. So that was their biggest concern. So what I did was I arranged a few of the carers at my parents' house so that they could meet them as well and be confident that they could deliver my care, as well as, they could. It did help in a way that I had been slowly introducing carers since I was about 10 years old to, so it wasn't like you're doing all the care one day and the next day you're doing no care. We sort of tried to do it so it's like a gradual thing where the carers would take more and more of the responsibility from my parents.
Thank you. What did you most appreciate about what your parents did that most supported your independence?
Well, thankfully, my parents helped us find a flat that was accessible and could be converted. So most of the flats we looked at were upstairs, or they had steps up to the door. There was sort of like some issue with, you know, putting a ramp in, things like that, because of space. So they actually went out and found a lot of private rented flats that we could go and view, and thankfully we viewed one that was actually up for sale. They persuaded the new landlords to when they took over the building that they would sort of help with the conversions and things like that. So we actually have got a brilliant landlord that completely understands my disability and my wife's and the help we need. Yeah, they've been more than happy for us to make changes to the interior, exterior of the building, which a lot of private rental flats that we've looked at, the landlords were a bit funny about, you know, widening front doors, having ramps fitted, things like that. There was a lot of concern about that, whether they could then rent it to somebody else in the future. So that was probably the best thing that they did to support us, was find us a very nice landlord that was willing to help us out.
Thank you. And what would your advice be for parents in helping their children build their independence?
I would say definitely just encourage them as much as possible. Obviously, they're still going to need you, but there's, like a lot of people have touched on, there's such a better relationship that you have with your parents, rather than them being your carer as well as your parents. Is nice to go around there and see them like on the independent thing. So I would definitely say they just need to encourage and support as much as they can.
Thank you. And last question. Thank you, Matthew. Is there anything you wish someone had told you?
Well, about living independently, I kind of wish they told me how long it takes to get certain equipment and things like that, because you'd think you'd get them quite quick. However, one example would be when we tried to get a ramp for the front door. We ended up having to ask a friend of mine who's a carpenter to actually build us a ramp. One waited 4 months to get one from the Disabled Facilities grant, which, if we'd known that before we moved, we may have been able to sort of do it a bit sooner, so that we could have moved to a fully accessible property rather than sort of a half converted property.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much for your time. If anybody's got any questions, please put them in the chat. I am going to try and answer them once I've got the next video running. So next up, we've got Zach and Vicky Richardson. It's a short video, and we'll be speaking to them a little bit later. They're part of our panel. So please bear with me again while I just try and find the video on my computer.
So I'm Vicky Richardson. I'm mum to Zach, yeah, who's 18 years old. I've got 2 other children, Sean and Eva, nearly 14 and nearly 7. In my time when I'm not being mum, I work for Disability North, which is a user-led charity in the North East.
Zach.
Richardson, 18. I go to college, go to the pub, yeah. Talk to people, the caravan pub. I drive around in my beach wheelchair. I like going for walks with him. Yeah.
What do you do with Kieran?
I do volunteering work at gymnastics. I coach the little people to do moves and that. Yeah.
You do badge testing, don't you? You did a course on badge testing, so you can
badge testing.
Look and see if they've passed their badges.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the warm-up games.
Yeah.
And then what's the best bit about afterwards when you've done your job? What's your favourite bit?
Go out for lunch to KFC. Get a job. I like to work in a car garage. I like to go and see my grandma on my own.
Yeah, you do that on your own, don't you?
Yeah.
Travels quite a long way to go see his grandma, a couple of miles. What do you really want to do without us though, that you don't do at the minute?
My own house. It'll have to be that accessible house. Yeah.
So it used to be when he was younger, we would take the girls places that they couldn't maybe access when Zach was there. So sort of like soft plays when they were younger. We thought that was really important. Now though, it's I run. I go running when he's out on a Saturday, or I'm at work. Now when he's obviously out and about with his PAs, I'm usually working. Yeah. Probably shout at all the different people involved in trying to fund his independence. Like talk to the social workers and the send officers, and I think he realises there's a lot that has to go on to help him to live independently. Yeah, and sort his PAs out. I suppose that's changed over the years. Really, when he was younger, it was trying not to do everything for him, and kind of not putting him in a protective bubble. I think doing that when he was younger has actually helped him now he's older. And now it's taken that step back. Now he's 18. So when he's looking to me for the support, I'm sort of putting it back to him. And when he wants, particularly instructing his PAs or directing his PAs, we're really trying to encourage him to do that now rather than us. Because if he wants to live independently, I'm not going to be there 24/7. So we're just trying to build that confidence in him and giving him the room to make the mistakes, but really giving him that room where he's confident to instruct people on what he wants to do. He'll tell me as well if he wants to do something his way. He'll say, "I'll do it. I'll sort it." And when he's not feeling as confident, he'll say, "Can you speak to such and such?" And obviously in meetings, he will look to me and I'll know then when to step in.
We're going to be hearing from Zach and Vicky a little bit later on. So next up, we've got Stevie and Faye Pearson, who they'll be introduced in the next video, and we'll be asking some questions afterwards.
I want people to know that we are just a nice family of three. Stand up. Good boy. Yeah, we might be in wheelchairs, but we're no different to them. Good boy, that's it. And why does the world not see us capable of being parents? Because at the end of the day, our little boy is just like any other little boy. He's happy and he is very, very much loved. Oh, what have you got? Is it a hair? No, don't eat it. That's nasty. All gone. Gone. All gone. It's gone. High five. Boom.
Rowan's turned to definitely a little character. He's definitely full of energy, very cheeky.
Which one should we read? Neither, of course. He's very quick at learning, and he's starting to speak more and repeating things. Wow! Woo! Good boy! More? Rowan's going to be 18 months next month. He's a very outgoing, funny little boy.
He's definitely got your look in his eye.
And yeah, he's definitely got your cheekiness.
He's a real mixture of both of us.
Yeah. Maria, do you mind making me and Stevie a cup of tea? Yeah. I was diagnosed with SMA when I was around 18 months old. I would describe SMA as a weakness. All of my body is quite weak. My arms, my neck muscles, even my breathing. And I can't walk at all.
DMD stands for Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and it's a muscle wasting condition that affects every organ.
So the difference between our disabilities is Stevie's DMD is more progressive than SMA.
Yeah, Mario's working tonight, yeah, and
tomorrow. And then it's Bobby in the morning. And then in the morning I've got to go to that kangaroo thing. We met around about 11 years ago, and we were playing power chair football. Stevie was on the opposing team to me. Yeah, I just seen him across the sports hall and I was like, oh, he's a bit of alright.
Well, we started off as friends, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and now we've been married 5 years.
Now I'm stuck with him.
I definitely always wanted children, but being with Faye, I never realised that would have been really possible, but she's very determined, and when she's got her mind set on something, then she normally gets it, so.
I read an article about someone else with SMA, and she carried successfully and delivered her child, her little girl. It drove me to want to be a mum.
During pregnancy, yeah, it was a little bit scary, because knowing the risk of like having a baby. When Faye went down for the cesarean, that was probably the worst weight of my life, really. Getting the news that they were both okay was, well, I felt on top of the world, really.
Rowan was born, it was the 11th of October 2017.
Life after Rowan, it was a little bit of adjustment, but after a day or two, it just felt like he'd been there for years. Just felt really natural.
Oh, hello. Do.
The chances of Rowan getting our disabilities, it definitely played on my mind, but we had advice from someone and they said that he wouldn't get our disabilities. The only thing he did inherit was the SMA gene, but that would affect if he had children, but he would get tested for that.
Do you want some dinner? Are you on your bug? Oh. We remain as independent as possible with the help of our carers. Grab the tomatoes and the cucumber as well. Yeah, stick it in the bowl.
Look.
Lauren, look, we're cooking.
You hungry?
Obviously, in relation to them helping Rowan, everything that they do is instructed by myself or Stevie.
Yeah.
One of us is always present for any of his care. So whether that being changing his bum or putting him in the bath or feeding him, one of us will always be there. Give him a bit more pasta. I know it's coming, it's coming. 2 minutes, be patient. You gotta be patient. That's it. Yeah, and then if we put him in his chair first, then we'll get sorted. So parenting isn't difficult because our guys that we have working for us are all very understanding, and they respect that. You okay? Are you chewing it properly? Tomato.
Yeah, and the other one as well.
Look, we've all got the same. Yeah.
Just push me forward a little. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you. Eat some more.
Happy day. Good boy, you alright? Wash your hands off. Good boy. The thing that stands out for me most is when Rowan hurts himself and we can't pick him up to sort of hold him. That's probably the one thing that I wish I could do. But obviously I'm grateful that they can do that for me. It's your turn.
Should I go? Are you going to stay in here with Daddy?
Should we go in here?
Yes.
Like, what's this? Come on.
Uh-oh.
Rowan.
Come back, you. The hardest thing for me with Rowan is being able to pick him up and hold him tight. And just to let him know that I'm there for him. Yeah, that's hard to deal with.
We're going to the farm.
Go on the farm. You can't go to the farm without your shoes on. We're not classed as a normal human being. Like, we're not allowed to have children. In the car. Yeah, the birdies. And we're not allowed to be able to drive a car or own our own house or work. And that's how I feel that the public perceive us. Right? Should we put your hand strap on?
Hey! Oh, nearly.
When we're out and about in the general public, people never think that we are one's parents.
It's a good boy.
That's it, good boy. They always just assume that whoever's with us is either his guardian or his mother or father, and that's quite upsetting, and it annoys us a little bit, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it does. Yeah.
Because what is normal, what I want people to watch this and to know that we are just a nice family of three, and yeah, we might be in wheelchairs, but we're no different to them. Hiya, Mr. Goat. What? Come here. Stand on here. Say hello, Goat. It's nice to watch him grow up and yeah, for him to accept us as his parents, and that's heartwarming, and that is ultimately what I wanted when I started this journey, when I decided I wanted to be a parent, is will my child love me like a child loves any other mother? And the answer is yes. We love him so much, and he returns it, he gives that love back to us, and it makes everything worthwhile.
It does, definitely.
And it made all of the pain through pregnancy worthwhile, and yeah, he's good. I'm proud to be his mum, and I'm proud of who he's turned into be. Yeah.
He's off.
He's off.
Rowan, wait for us.
You're too fast.
Oh, he's after the bird.
So Faye and Stevie, hi. I hear that Rowan might make an appearance. And I think we'd all like to see him as well. So I've got some questions for Stevie. First of all, as with everybody else, just a little question at the beginning. What's the silliest thing you've ever done?
Silliest thing I've ever done?
Yes.
I'm just trying to think. Probably, I remember driving through a waterfall in New York once.
That's probably quite silly.
Yeah, that was probably pretty silly, yeah.
Okay, so on to the questions. What's been the most rewarding thing for you about being a parent?
I probably think seeing Rowan grow, see him develop, and hit all his milestones and see the little flat that he turned into. I think that's definitely the most rewarding thing.
And what is the thing that you most like doing with Rowan?
I think I like going for walks with Rowan. We like definitely playing. He's got a wild imagination, so we're always playing something in the garden, pretending that there's dragons or pretending that he's Spider-Man. It's quite fun.
Thank you. This is a little bit harder, sorry. What has been the greatest challenges of being a parent, and how have you dealt with them or this? And what helped to sort it out?
I would say our biggest challenges were sort of where Rowan would fall over and hurt himself and we wouldn't be able to pick him up, but having someone with us all the time, it makes that a little bit easier, just to be able to give him a quick cuddle if he's hurt himself.
Do you want to wave to him, everybody? Rowan's waving. Hi, Rowan. What were your greatest misgivings about becoming a parent?
I wouldn't say we had many, really. We just, the sort of person that I am, we sort of just deal with it when it happens, really.
And finally, when you talked about wanting to have a family, what was the most useful piece of advice that you received?
That's the thing, it was really difficult to find anyone to give us that advice, really. There wasn't many places we could turn to. But this is why we're doing this now, is to show that other people that it is doable, and that if people need some advice, we're here for them.
We did have advice with like the genetic side of things, but there was nobody in the air like in the same position as us, or we didn't really know of anybody who, like any couples who both had disabilities wanted to become parents. So it wasn't like, and there wasn't really anybody to ask how to do it. But we got all like the right medical questions asked, and we made sure that one wasn't going to like inherit any of our disabilities or anything. Yeah.
So just practical. I'm pretty sure that I can say on behalf of everybody that's here that that it's brilliant that you're here and that people will be wanting to gain advice from you too in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean,
so thanks.
Ask us questions. We've already had loads of people after that video went live, but yeah, I reckon there's more people now in the position who are ready to have children and stuff. And yeah, we're ready to answer any questions. It doesn't matter what they are. Just get in touch.
Thank you so much, Faye and Stevie.
Yeah.
Thank you. So next up we have Lee and Catherine Armstrong, which is another video. So just bear with me while I find that.
So I'm Lee. I've got Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and I'm 22-year-old. I'm an engineer, and I'm very soon to move out of my mum and dad's house.
And I'm his mum, who we can't wait to get away from. I'm Catherine, dental therapist, and I'm not going to divulge my age because I'm a lady.
To be honest, it wasn't really anything that made us like decide. It was just, oh well, it was because I was clever at school, basically.
There's never in any doubt of it, was it?
So it was always just like, I knew from a young age that I was, you know, I was going to do GCSEs at school, then do A-levels and then go to uni. I was like, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I just knew that, like, you know, I had the ability, so it would have been a waste not to. So yeah, I would say even like from primary school, I think I knew I wanted to do that. I remember choosing my options at the end of year 8, which it was already past like the normal deadline for choosing your options for your GCSEs. So obviously I had to do that a year early. And I remember having to make them in a hurry. Actually, one thing I do remember about that, actually, which I think is worth mentioning, is when I went to choose my options in year 8.
Oh yeah, the careers advisor.
the the people who helped us choose them. One person had scratched off the list of options PE.
She was a careers advisor.
Yeah, they just plain said,
you're disabled, so you can't do PE, so we're not even going to mention it.
But well, you're obviously not doing GCSE PE then. And I was like, well, hang on a minute, I actually play power chair football in the Premiership division of the National League. I'm not too bad at sport. I was like, so actually, I think them scratching it out.
It's a bit of a red rag, wasn't it?
Just really made us want to do it even more. And I was like, all right, yeah, so first one on the list, GCSE
PE. That, because he did that, that meant that he was going to go into sixth form early, so a year early, and do his A-levels a year early. And because he'd managed to do that, going to university, it was a given. It was obvious that his academic ability wasn't going to end when he left school. And because of that, well, why go to all of that trouble, getting all of those qualifications if you're not going to put it into good use by going for a job?
I'm trying to think of all the people we spoke to.
You had on his application form, you had to say whether or not he thought he had a disability, and that puts you into the disability equality and inclusion team at the university.
Yeah,
and they get in touch, and where everybody else has a freshers week, the disabled or those with extra needs also have a freshers week, but it's separate.
We had another day, so we were, if you were moving in, you were allowed to move in earlier, but there was also like an information day that was earlier than everybody else. And they introduced to it all sorts of disability things as well. So like they had an inclusive Newcastle, it was called, that did like disability sport. There was like the main disability advisors as well, and they were really good, I found. But
there's like a team at the university who deal specifically with, because of course this is all new to us.
I think in the open days at the uni as well. So
the open days were
actually
really
going
good.
into the building where I was going to be and speaking to the staff that were going to be teaching us.
So we've got a bit of a thing in this house where I'm now trying more now, the older he's got, to stay out of it. And by that, I just mean, okay, there's your task. Do what you can to get it done. And then when it doesn't happen because he's being fobbed off or whatever, the question then is, do you need your mum? And then it would be either, yeah, can you give them a bell and chase it up or whatever, or can you put it a different way? And that's when, but earlier on, when his confidence wasn't as good as it is now, because we'll all get more confident the older we get, then I would just, right, well, what can we do? What's available to get it done? And what help do we need? Because he's the first disabled person I've ever dealt with, so this is all new to us. And I think as a parent, you've got to let them get on with it. Yeah, our job as parents, in my opinion, is to prepare your children for adult life and the big old world. Now, I'm not going to be here forever. I hope to be in Tenerife, a long way away, or wherever we're going to be. It's nice to hear him now. He's quite confident, and he'll get on the phone, and I would like to think that we've prepared him that way. Yeah. And the other two.
I think that, yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say is I don't treat him any differently to anybody else. He just can't walk. Let's do what you can. And when you get stuck, come and see me like any other man.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can fix it and sometimes I can't. Okay, I fix most things.
Yeah. Or we'll find someone who can fix it anyway, yeah. Basically
life changing.
Yeah. I could think even if I had I've got full-time care, and you could say, oh well, they could drive me car and it would be the same. But actually, when I was at uni, so I'd say probably slightly more kind of able than what I am now, if you know what I mean, a bit stronger, but not too much. So the DSA would only provide carers while I was at uni. If I wanted them outside of uni, I would have had to go to social care team to get what I've got now. But at the time, I didn't really need much help at home, and I only needed it for uni. So it meant that I would drive me car to and from uni on my own. So it was really useful being able to drive myself, I think. But yeah, it made us really independent. I was saying that. I think one thing I really liked doing was driving on the way home, call in to see grandparents and things like that. and it meant that I could do that, like just just when you felt like it and stuff like that.
Pick up your brother and your sister and go to Nando's.
Yeah, stuff. So a few times, I mean, even when I've had carers, me and Danny. So Danny's my little brother, everyone. So he can drive now, but a few years ago he couldn't. So me and him would quite often go out for cinema, go out for Nando's and stuff like that. And so it meant that I could go and do all of that like I normally would, without carers these days as well. It's just a good break sometimes, I think. And I wouldn't be able to do that if they had to drive the car. So the subjects I was always good at physics.
To be fair, you were good at everything.
I was good at everything, but they were the ones that
you
I
didn't
liked.
have to write.
Yeah, I liked doing them. I was particularly good at maths. So I know at first I actually wanted to do something like I wanted to be an architect or something to do with building design and things like that. But I think it was in physics lessons basically. Saw like forces and things like that. I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. So engineering came up quite quickly, and then it was, I didn't want to do civil engineering, not that I do bridges, but I liked, it's like engines and gears and things that move and stuff like that, and big chunks of steel and stuff. That's the type of thing I was interested in. So I was like, right, mechanical engineering. So went in for that degree, and with the target really of getting an engineering job at the end of it. So that's basically what I did. So it's a degree in mechanical engineering, but it's got something called mechatronics bolted on the end of it. All right, so the target was to get an engineering job, and obviously the best way to do that was to get a good grade. So in the end, I did get a first, and it was a master's degree. So it was basically about the best that I could get. It took 4 years, but it was the best that I could get. But how did I get the job? So basically just applying everywhere. I think what helped was a placement that I did in between the 3rd and 4th year. I think that was really useful in getting the job. But yeah, I wrote a CV like anybody else would. The riser on my chair, that helps us at work. I've got support workers at work. So they're actually the same people who social care provide as well. I say provide, pay for. So basically got it worked out so that
you use an agency, don't you?
Use an agency. So social care pay the agency, and access to work also pay the same agency. I would say that it takes a bit of negotiating with access to work, that because they want you to go away and find 3 quotes, and then they'll choose the cheapest rather than the one that's actually going to work. So I think I found that you could explain that in the end, though, and eventually get through anything that's physical based, anything that I can't do. If it's not typing or using a mouse, then I'll get them to help us. So getting things in and out of drawers, going to printers, going to photocopiers. Doors as a main one. So if I'm ever going through the building, just pushing and pulling doors is like medication they give us, take us to the toilet. There's a few like devices and things that kind of help us. So work have provided us with things like a headset instead of using a phone and stuff like that. But really, there's not much in my job anyway that I can't do on a computer. So I do most things myself, really.
Treat him exactly the same as the other 2 children. Yeah. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. None. He behaved the same. He had the same tellings off. He was given all of the same opportunities. He was never spoilt, so he had to be treated exactly the same. I often used to say to him when he was younger, do what you can while you can, and push. He had a talent, he was academic, let's go for it.
Yeah, no, exactly that, yeah. I think it's, like having my brother and sister as well, I think that's, I don't know, there's other things going on, like not like in the house, say.
It didn't revolve around you, did it?
It wasn't always all about me, and if I struggled to do something a little bit, it was like, well, all right, yeah, you struggle, how are you, let's go. Like, just Like, so what?
Not that we're entirely unsympathetic,
not
but
unsympathetic, but not like, you know, I would go and...
We're quite a determined bunch, aren't we?
You know, if we're going out for a walk with the dog, whether I was going on foot or in my chair, I was going. Just like never the easy option. It was always...
Make it happen.
Well, it's happening. Like, you're going to do it. So, and I think I'm like that now. I'm just like, well, I want that engineering job. And so I'm going to have it. Yeah. I'm not going to come up with reasons why I can't have it. I'm going to come up with solutions wherever there's issues. And yeah, I think that's like built into us now, I think.
Not being frightened to let them go. I think that is the thing. But I don't think this is just something with these boys with DMD or other disabilities. I think it's just parents having to let their children go, prepare them, you know, get them on the phone, get them having conversations with agencies, other adults, fact finding, make sure you've got all of the information that you possibly can have, and just prepare them.
Encourage, I would say, socializing.
Yeah, it's trying to make sure that the world is accessible.
I think I started with social care, so with carers, from about, how old was I? I was about, 7.
For football.
And it was, at the beginning, I only got 10 hours of social care a week. Now, I used that to pay a carer who was a family friend. So someone who I knew and I was comfortable with at the time looking after us. It wasn't too personal what he had to do. Just had to take us there and get us back really and sort me football chair out and things. And but that meant that I went and played football without my mum and dad taking us, as you know. So I went to see my friends, and that, you know, didn't matter if I was I'd say swearing or talking about things, you know what I mean, things that you just don't like to talk about in front of your parents, but you do with your mates. Start early on and try and be as normal as other kids are, spending less time with your parents. That's always what I would say, and for parents to encourage that, I would say. I was offered a new job, so I'm going to be working for RBSL, who they have the contract to upgrade the Challenger 2 tanks to the Challenger 3 tanks. So that's very exciting. And the other thing is the house that I was meant to buy a while ago, until the seller died and the house had to go to probate, which has taken a long time. It's meant that one mortgage offer has expired. I've just been told this week that probate's been granted, and so expect to hear from the solicitors very soon. And so a mortgage application's gone off today. So I'm hoping have the keys pretty soon, because all the work's already been done by the solicitors and things. So I think it's just going to be a case of getting the money sorted, exchanging contracts, and then away.
So that was Lee and Catherine. So I probably should have told you a little bit earlier on that all of those people that have had their interviews recorded, I actually cut them quite significantly, and we will be putting the whole interview onto our YouTube channel. So they do run a little bit longer. But thanks to Lee and Catherine. They're not here tonight, but they said any questions and they will happily answer them. So next up, we've got Mark. Are you still there, Mark? So while Mark's unmuting, Mark's 51 as of Saturday. Happy birthday, Mark. And he lives in his own flat in the suburbs of Edinburgh.
Right, here we are. We just got some photos to run through.
Mark, while we're just waiting for them to start, is it possible to ask you about what your best holiday ever has been?
Oh, best holiday ever, my goodness. There are quite a few. One of my best was in a place in the mountains of Spain near Malaga. There's a really good sort of hotel set up for disabled people, and they have all the equipment you need to do accessible transfers, excursions, and I even had a float in their pool, so going somewhere like that was just fabulous.
Great, thank you. Are you happy for me to ask you a few questions, Mark?
Yes, carry on. Yep, I hope so.
if you think of something that I haven't asked and you want to add it, please do that. Can you tell me how come you came about moving into your own place?
Well, it was mainly because I went to a special residential school, which was in Edinburgh, 60 miles from my parents. And I made good friends there, some of whom have been lifelong friends. And when school finished, there was nothing. And I was back home with my parents, and really, I was just starting. It's a rural place, and I was stuck away from my friends. And they felt that that had to be tackled. Because I was desperate to get back as well. And a lot of pushing from my parents. I mean, we met with my local MP. And we did all sorts to really push it. I was lucky to have a really good social worker at the time who was really trying to push the funding. It all took a year longer than we thought. But in the end, I got back to Edinburgh. And to cut a long story short, I was lucky to get a place in this pilot scheme of supported living that had a real ethos of independence. And I lived there a few years. And then because my needs increased slightly, I felt I then wanted to employ PAs, which involved a fight at the time, but I'm so glad I did. And I've now lived independently for 31 years, and I don't really know anything different. And another thing it did for me, I saw that my parents then had an independent life. They were able to go on holiday, they were able to go to parties, see friends, and not worry about me at all, really. And I was so pleased to see that happen. And certainly my mum would never cope with my support now. I mean, that would just be impossible. And I have a very good relationship with my mum now. They would do chat about stuff and everything. And of course, you may worry a wee bit still, but I think we're in a much better place than I would have been had I not lived independently.
Thank you. I've got just a quick question, if that's okay.
Yes.
Mark, if you were 16 now,
yes,
what would you want to know about?
Oh, how to go about setting up independent living. And I think to do it as early as possible. That's really important because it does take time. And sadly today you still have to fight. And you've got to give it the time and try and get as much information as you can.
Thank you, Mark. And last question. Where do you go for advice?
Quite often my close friends, but we have an organisation that supports with the employment of PAs and advertising and does the payroll and gives you legal and all the legal advice and everything. So a bit both really. And experience actually now. I'm experienced in employment of PAs for the ins and outs really. And of course it never works out all the time. But you just get through it and that's challenging. I really wouldn't have it any other week.
Thank you, Mark. It's brilliant to see all your photos, and
yep.
Yeah, happy birthday again.
Yes, I was just wanting to show where I currently am with my life and the sort of things I get up to, really.
So finally, we've got a panel. So we have a panel of guests. I think everybody's still here. So I'm going to introduce all four of you to start with, if that's okay. And then I'll ask you all a few questions. So I've called a panel of guests, planning for the future. And we've got a very different group of people. So it's a lot of the questions are going to have different answers from different people. So first of all, we've got Penny, who lives on the South Coast. She's got a son who is 21 with Duchenne. And her priority at the moment is to help her son move out of his residential home and find a flat of his own, start volunteering again and get on with his life.
Yeah.
We've also got Zach and Vicky, who you've already met, so I'm not going to introduce them again. Are they here? Yes, I can see them. Wait, there we are. You can unmute yourself if you want to, Zach and Vicky. And Johnny, who is our model from the event marketing. He lives independently in a supported living flat in Manchester and actually got married during the COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, the fourth member of our panel is, I've just had a message from Johnny saying that he switched him off. So we'll wait and see if he joins us again. And finally, it's Celine, who is, there he is. Sorry, Celine. Celine's an aunt of an adult with Duchenne, and she worked alongside Dr. Janet Hoskin in the design and delivery of Action Duchenne's Taking Charge, Transition to Adulthood project that you heard a little bit about at the beginning, which does seem quite a long time ago now. Thank you all for being so patient. So that's our four panel guests. Some of the questions I will ask that will be joint questions between all of you, but there will be some that are individual to you. Penny, I wanted to ask you, would it have been helpful to speak to other young people with DMD about moving out and the different options and why?
Yeah, it would have been helpful to speak particularly to people who had gone into transition homes before moving on to get their own flats, because Dan is currently in a transition home that is not really functioning as a transition home, and he's kind of stuck there. So we thought when he moved in that they would have a program to help him sort of adjust to adult life, and that there would be a proper pathway so that he had a clear place to go after spending 1 or 2 years in this home. And that hasn't been the case. Even with the COVID pandemic, I've pushed and pushed and there's been nothing there. So I'm actually having to take all of that on and find the pathways for him myself with the help of the social worker. So if I could have talked to somebody in that position and they could have advised me to really push and probe and find out what sorts of pathways and help were in place, that would have been really useful for me, I think.
Johnny, I'm going to ask you something similar, because I think that you are in, I wouldn't call it a transition home, but I would call it something slightly in between living completely independently and living with parents. Would you like to explain your setup, Johnny, please?
Yeah, I live in supported living, so it's individual flats, but we have all our own, like bathroom and kitchen and living room, just like a standard flat. Has like wide doorways and the usual adaptations, and then you apply for adaptations that are personal to myself, and the staff are always around, and you have set times for certain things and certain hours that you get agreed with social workers. And then if you need stuff around, then you have things called background hours that you use for bits in between where you can't really account for every day. Like if you don't know when you're going to have a drink or the loo or something like that, that's what they're used for. So it's individual flats, but the care's always here as well, which is a benefit as well, I think, most times.
Thank you. So my understanding is that the task of making sure that you've got personal care assistants in place all the time is removed a little bit, but because that's already done as part of the place that you live. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you don't have as much control of it. Like, you don't get to select your own PAs and your own staff, but you can suit your hours around what you like. But it does sometimes break down because obviously there's other tenants who have their own flats in a building, and because your staff shared between everyone, even if you have your set time, sometimes it doesn't always work to plan, so stuff can go wrong a bit like that. That's one of the downsides.
Thank you. Vicky, Zach has additional learning difficulties as well as Duchenne. Do you think there are expectations for young people like Zach to move out into their own place?
No. No, I don't think so. Certainly not in the local authority area that we live in. I think it's expected that he'll do another year at college and then they'll find something in the community for him to do, but he'll stay at home. So there's a lot of work being done to change that. And it is changing, but it's been we've had it in his EHCP since year 9 that this is what Zach wants to do, to move out. So we've kind of just, kept planning for it year after year.
Celine, is there anything you want to add in there?
Well, it's that thing of having it in a plan because it's the aspiration for the future, and you don't deviate from that. Once and your young person is clear about what they want, you don't allow yourself to be moved off course because it suits resource panels or it suits somebody else who's never had an experience of someone with a disability having this kind of life. And it's about having really the resilience, the strength, just the determination to just keep pushing, and also to have many experiences of other people that you can say, but they're doing this in this part of the country and I know somebody who's doing that somewhere else. And I think that was one of the things about taking charge that was really important. We brought together people who were doing things that families didn't know could happen. And so it is that what you're doing here tonight, the networking, and once you've got the information that it's possible, not letting go of that aspiration, what you want.
Thank you. And Penny, I know we've talked about this before the event. Could you tell us about the first steps that you've taken to start the process of moving your son into his own place?
Yes. So one of the first things I did was get advice from a local organisation called the Aldingbourne Centre, which is mainly for people who've got learning disabilities, but they were able to advise me on applying for benefits on the sort of maze and minefield of benefits applications, and I've got them on tap to advise me. So when the time comes for him to apply for universal credit, we'll have some assistance there because she'll help us get him onto the higher rate. I also researched all of the local housing associations and charities that help people with disabilities to find accommodation. But the vast majority of these are just for people with autism and learning difficulties. For obvious reasons, they're much easier to home, aren't they, than wheelchair users. So I got turned down by most of them, but there was one called Grace Air that also helped people with sort of psychiatric problems. So I said, well, he's very anxious and depressed because this home isn't meeting his needs. So isn't that a sort of a psychiatric problem? And they said, yes, it was. And they're actually trying to see whether they might be able to buy him a property. And then the social worker would help to get a care package together so that he could stay there. So I think even if housing associations say that they are only for people with learning disabilities or sort of mental health problems, then it might be worth just sort of pushing those. I've also been trying to look into shared ownership, and there's an organisation called My Safe Home. If you Google that, all one word, you can find it quite easily. And if you've got some cash that you can put into a deposit for your person with Duchenne, then it's possible to get a shared ownership scheme. However, that doesn't operate in Sussex, so we're stumped with that one because he wants to stay in Worthing with all of his drinking buddies. But everyone's impressed on me. It's so important to get all your ducks lined up in a row. So get the social worker to start talking to care agencies to get the care package, get advice on your benefits, and just go for as many different options as you can. And then hopefully one of those will come good for you.
Thank you, Penny. Johnny, I'm going to come back to you, just because it's quite exciting, really, that in the summer you married.
Yeah.
I'm going to see how many times I can get that in. I didn't get to come to your wedding. I was a bit gutted about COVID for that, really. But can you tell me, does where you work, live still work well? And will you be looking to move in somewhere together?
Yeah, it works well for a time being, and it has worked for most part, for just the gap between moving out with my parents and total independence. But as things progress, because we're wanting to look at starting a family in the future as well, we're starting to look, we've been looking more at finding bungalows where it's our own individual place, more so we can just make it our home. So that's our plan, is to move there, because it just gives us more independence with planning our support. And obviously for starting a family, you want to be in a bungalow or just in your own house or apartment where it's that place going to be more long term.
Thank you. And Vicky and Zach. Zach, you can answer this if you want to, but if your mum wants to answer, that's fine as well. Am I right in saying that you took part in the Taking Charge project? Do you remember, Vicky?
Yeah.
Brilliant. I thought I was. So do you think you benefited from that? And if you did, how?
I think he did hugely, because I think it helped him to see other people with Duchenne, and certainly that's where his aspiration to move out came from. He hadn't really thought about it until that project, so I think he benefited hugely. And actually it was Celine that made sure his EHCP was watertight in terms of what's in there for preparing for adulthood, so definitely benefit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course, the Taking Charge project is finished. So do you have any advice for other parents of young people with DMD? And this is for all of you. Do you want to go first, Vicky?
I think not to be scared, I think, of meeting up with other people with Duchenne, and to sort of share that experience and share ideas. I know particularly when Zach was younger, I was really apprehensive about looking too far into the future. But I think it really has helped us to sort of cope with the next steps and the next stages, and to make sure that we've got a plan. So I think if anything like that comes up again, just grab it, because it'll just do you as a parent, but it'll do a young person the world of good.
Thank you. And Celine, the same question to you, but particularly in relationship to extended family members, and how you can support parents of young people with DMD making future life choices.
Yeah. So my experience was that, I was the aunt, I was a teacher, I was away in work, and my sister, who at the time was a single parent, was with my nephew. But, we didn't have expectations, because the part of the country where my nephew lived, there weren't expectations of people with Duchenne. And it took me a long time to realise that there was a job of work to be done to educate people, even within my own family, about what was possible. And so, it is that thing of, we're all advocates, and we all can find things out, and we can share the information widely. And I would just say that anyone who's involved with you, use them to do that, and also to find information out, because I was bringing information back to my family saying, did you know this is possible? Did you know people are doing this? And of course it was eye-opening. And I brought my sister from Ireland to a conference where she met adults with Duchenne, and it just changed everything. It just changed everything for my nephew and for us as a family.
Penny? Thank you, Celine.
Yeah, Dan took part in taking charge, and it was incredibly helpful in helping him to raise the bar when it came to his own ambitions. But actually, even just attending the sessions at all were a really useful exercise, just in making, you know, they can get a bit apathetic sometimes, just like all kids. And me actually saying, look, this will be really useful. We are going to do this, making him go. And then once I got him there, he discovered there was always something useful to learn. And it just helped to give him that bit of additional drive. And it expresses itself now. So he finished his education. He finished his education at sixth form college. He did volunteering. And it's also helped to give him this sort of inbuilt drive even now, just to give him the confidence to start going to the pub again following lockdown. All those different sorts of aspects of his personality, I think, have been helped by taking charge, and he can't wait to get out and start volunteering again now. And I think every step he takes towards genuine adult independence really improves our relationship, as we've heard earlier. He's much more of a companion to me now, and it's a proper mother-son relationship now that he's made that break and I'm not his carer. So I thought it was a great scheme, and it would be really good to see something like that again.
So that's brilliant. Thank you, Penny. So do you have advice for parents of other young people with DMD now?
Now I would say just think of something they can do. Just thinking about the kinds of things that we did at Taking Charge, they were about sort of stretching hobbies that would get them to maybe play a musical instrument or have a go at something artistic or physical that they hadn't done before. I'd say see whether there's scope to get them involved in something like that locally. Also, Cubs and Scouts were really good. You get a sort of a version of that with Cubs and Scouts as well. Dan didn't want to go when it wasn't cool anymore, but when he did go, he actually discovered that he was really good at shooting. He had a really good aim, and he won quite a few trophies for shooting with the Scouts. So I think just think outside the box and think of anything that will enable them to try new things and compete, you know, sometimes on an equal level playing field with able-bodied kids as well. And all of these sorts of things, I think, build up their confidence in a similar way.
Thank you. And Johnny, do you have any advice for parents of young people with DMD?
When I first started out, I didn't really think there was much chance of living on my own. But when I started to look at it, I found that my parents sort of just helped encourage me and listen to what I wanted, and help with my expectations, and they would help me stay. I'd say to try and stay realistic as well, because sometimes it's good, because when it keeps you a bit level-headed and when you know what things to look for, like how to approach funding, and then help knowing where to look for places, like including social workers quite a lot. And then they can help put you on like housing association lists and things like that to help get the ball rolling. And just be, sometimes you do have to push quite a lot with social workers and other things. You have to push quite a lot for funding. And that sort of helps a lot, because the thing I found was that it took a while to get the funding all approved, and that process was tricky. So I think the bit that helped me with my parents was they helped me write down what my care involved and the perspective from them. So then it helped get a good list of what support I needed. So and that helps apply as well when you go to funding panels and looking at the type of places to live.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Johnny, and thank you everybody else on the panel. Thank you, Celine, Penny, and who else is on my panel? Zach and Vicky. Sorry, you're muted on here. We're going to round it up, unless we've got any other questions from the delegates, which I'm not seeing any other questions. We're going to finish it off here. Thanks ever so much to everybody that's been and spoken. We've got a few little messages before you go anywhere. So at the beginning, if you were a little bit early, you will have heard some music by Alex James called Direction. It is on Spotify. It's by a young man with Duchenne. He is a musician in the Northeast, and I asked him if we'd be okay to use his music to make sure that it wasn't so boring at the beginning of the webinar while we wait to start. And he gave us permission, but he'd asked if we would let people know about his Spotify so that people can listen on there. So the link for that's in the chat as well, but I will send all of this out at the end, probably tomorrow morning. We've also set up a Facebook group called Encouraging Independence, Ask the Adults. And that's to continue the conversation we've had here tonight as well. So we've got a number of our adults with Duchenne are part of the group, as well as some of the other speakers here tonight. I've already added you to that. So any of the delegates that are here, if they want to add themselves to that group on Facebook, we will be sending the information out via email following on from the event. But if you want to search for it, it's called Encouraging Independence, Ask the Adults Living with DMD. Thank you very much for all the speakers and for all of you coming along.